we're running a smidge behind and just gotta get Zoom going. Welcome to the Saturday, March 22nd Comprehensive Plan Committee Roundtable. We're running a smidge behind. We're just getting set up. We have someone, Steve Lord, to give us some great information about the history of Lyman. We're looking forward to this. I'm just going to start Zoom, and we'll do, not everyone's here right now. I'm not sure if everyone's making it from the committee. So right now we have Don Harnan, Michelle Salisetti, Peg McDonald, and we're going to see if Dave's in the box. But Steve wasn't seeing if Dave's online. If you want to go ahead and start and let us know what you thought about what Southern Maine gave us for history on Lyman, and what you see, what you have for us to look at, I would love to see it. Okay. This is my favorite thing when you present.
All right. Well, you each had a copy.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And you can come right and sit right up here if you want. Go right ahead.
Thank you.
And I'll leave you the extra copies too.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see if Dave's in here. If he's not, then how do you get the boxes? All right, let me see. I don't see it. I don't know if something changed since. Huh. Oh, there's a box. I got it now. Okay. Oh, you're fine. There, here. So here, he's Dave box.
Well,
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hi, Kim.
Good. Have you met Steve Lord?
No, I haven't.
I am. I'm from the Historical Society.
Oh, nice to meet you. I've seen your great stuff online at the library.
Okay.
And so Steve is going to give us some amazing information.
There's a sheet for you, right? Take one of those. And those are yours to keep.
That's right. Well, if he joins, he doesn't. We're good. I don't know if that's.
We'll hear him deep anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, because I put the box in after, so I want to make sure that it's working out.
Yeah, I don't
Blue on
see
it?
blue. I see blue.
Yep,
there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, testing.
Little feedback there, honey. If it beeps, I'll go let him in.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we're here to get started. So I had reached out to Steve after we had gotten some information from from Southern Maine Planning on the history of Lyman and the historical figures they found on their search for our town. And I knew the expert that would be able to tell me maybe if we're missing a few, or if there's some info we're not aware of for what they've given us. Figured Steve could maybe fill us in a bit more. That would be wonderful to have that information in our plan.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Well, I will start in, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. So I came over to the town hall after you and my wife connected on, got in contact with each other, and I picked up a copy of the comprehensive plan. And there were 3 sections in particular that we focused on, and the one on that you had done on the cemeteries, that section must have been done by the cemetery committee.
No, I think it was done by SMPDC.
Yeah, I think it was done by Southern Maine Planning.
Yeah, and we did have
Okay.
some questions
All right.
on
And
it.
I
we
left-
have questions on it, but we'll work with the cemetery committee on that one as well.
Okay, because I checked most of it and it's right.
Oh, cool. Oh, thank you.
So I already went up to Springvale and I checked that stuff, and it obviously, and I didn't want to mess with it. There's only one, and I'll get to him in a second. but the rest of them are all right. The dates are all right. The numbers that you're seeing on the left correspond to the number of the cemetery numbers. And we have about 90 private family cemeteries in Lyman,
Yeah.
and they're numbered. And so that left-hand column that you see there are all the numbers of the different cemeteries.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
And what they did was they got one of the earliest stones from each of that selection, that sample of cemeteries that they did. So I didn't mess with that. So what I did was I took the first page there is I took the information you had on historic and archaeological resources, and I kind of just threw some documentation in and a little extra stuff. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because, this is yours to keep and do with what you want. The only thing I was going to mention, and I have some show and tell stuff that we have here, is I want to talk a little bit about the Coxall proprietors. And they're the ones that got the land in 1688. And it got sold to a group of 36 people, and they're all from Ipswich, Massachusetts area. And they owned a piece of land back then that was 4 by 6 miles. And that is kind of sort of like the blueprint of the earliest of Coxall back then. And they're called the Coxall proprietors. They got this land, but 2 things happened so that the land was not accessible. And the first thing was that King's Philip War started in 1675 and continued off and on for a long time. And it wasn't safe to build here. And so they had this land, but it really wasn't accessible for that reason. That's one reason why things kind of fell apart with the Coxall proprietors. The second thing that happened, and this is more interesting, is in the late 1600s, a bunch of the proprietors were accusing a bunch of the other proprietors of being witches. And there was about 6 of them who are trying a bunch of the other one. It doesn't make for a cohesive corporation. That's not a good business plan, to be accusing your fellow corporation members of being witches and having trials and all this. Needless to say, yeah, well, it doesn't really work out. So the result is they have this land up here, but nobody's making any money off of it. And they're kind of stuck with it. And really, those people never really got any money, but it's something that they owned and something that their children inherited. As we get into the 1700s, the proprietors start to get along a little better. And
burn them all. Or
yeah, the next generation is coming in, and and things are all right. So we got to get back to business here, and they always held their meetings for the next up until around 1800 in a place called the Swayze Inn in Ipswich, Massachusetts, and they would have meetings here periodically, and as the land starts getting sold in the middle 1700s, it becomes where they're having meetings, making business decisions on land sales and things like that. Now, I'm talking to the microphone. I'm going to grab something and show it to you. I don't know if they can hear me when I'm doing this.
Yeah, they usually.
Yeah.
Millet Day from the Historical Society went down to Mass Archives. And he got all of the original proprietary stuff out of Mass Archives. And these are all meeting notices and early stuff from the Coxall proprietors.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Okay.
Look at that.
And he got them all, and we got them up here, and we got them photocopied and put on a display board.
Wow,
And this is all of the original Coxall stuff.
that's
Wow.
amazing.
Interesting.
All right.
It's fascinating.
So these are documents and they run 1722 to 1779. And these are all of their notices, and they're all in Mass Archives. Because we all know, we're all part of Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
1820.
Yeah.
So all our stuff, early stuff.
Right.
It's
down there.
it's still down there.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave this up here, show it to the camera. We have this, and I'll leave it up here for you to
Yeah,
look at,
that's
That's really
amazing.
okay?
Thank you.
And the next one, okay? So, the major event that happens after that is the fall of Quebec in 1759. And that's when the area becomes safe for development, for land sales, for building houses. And everyone, because of the unsafe conditions inland, was bottled up along the coast. And it was kind of like a land rush. Once it became safe, they came inland. They bought now the land is becoming valuable. Now the proprietors are making money, and now they're getting organized. One of the first pieces of land in 1761 that was bought, it's on your sheet here, is the Emmons family. And that's why in 1763, Abigail Emmons becomes famous, because she's the first child born in Coxall. And all right, so, and in 1782, she became the second wife of Benjamin Cousins, who was obviously the great-grandfather of Horace Cousins. All right,
It's all coming together.
all right. So now you have people moving in here, and there's development going on. And you can see how in a very short amount of time, only 17 years, you go from like just land to now we have a town. And they're petitioning Massachusetts to become a town in 1778, and that is granted. However, that is challenged by Sanford. And Sanford has a land dispute of all the land down on the border, down at the end of North Berwick Road. And that holds up the incorporation of Coxall for 2 years until they get that settled. And it takes them 2 years to settle. That's why all your signs, say 1780, but it was really 1778. I don't recommend you change all your signs. But anyway, 1780, it gets resolved, and it is reincorporated, and John Hancock is now the Speaker of the Massachusetts General Court, and he signs the paper. And this is kind of cool. Millet Day found this down in the archives too. And this is all your incorporation paperwork
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
from
that's
1780. And if you look on there, you'll
Cool.
see John Hancock's
Yep.
signature.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Wow.
So you have a town that actually, they put their John Hancock.
Oh
on it. Because
my
John Hancock really-
God.
I love that.
That is
Pretty
so
good.
That is
cool.
that is fascinating.
Yeah, Millet called me up when he was down there, and he goes, "You won't believe what I just found." And when he was
That
down in the
is
He must have been
archives
like
that day.
losing. He must have been losing his mind.
So we got everything photocopied here, and this is all the original documents
Oh,
signed
wow.
by the general court.
Oh, I can't
That
wait
is
to
so
look at
cool.
these. That's
All
great.
right.
I love it.
So
And they
great.
can't see John Hancock.
Right.
They can
That
come
is
in
so-
and see.
I said,
right?
hopefully
You guys can
The
vouch
town
for
hall
it.
expansion, hopefully they have a beautiful room for you someday.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, we do need a
So
home.
amazing.
Yes,
You
Yeah.
yes.
do. You need a space.
Yes, this stuff everyone needs to be able to see.
For
This
sure.
is
Yeah.
so great.
It is. It's
That's
awesome.
very nice.
Such wonderful history to have.
All right, well, you guys have we have a really good history here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
this is amazing.
We have
I
a
didn't
really
even
good
know all
historical
this.
society.
Yes, you guys are the best.
All right, so we have all that.
We have some
Okay,
wow.
so we're gonna move along here through time. So the next thing that happens is most of I guess I'm going to move into the name change then, and then I'll go back to John
Mhm.
Lowe. The name of the town was changed on February 26, 1803, and it was changed from for the name of Theodore Lyman. Now, I moved him out of your notable history category and moved him into this category because he never lived in Lyman. He owned some land here. He never lived here. His father was a minister. He in York for like 60 years. You know, the big white congregational
Yeah.
church in York. His father was the minister there for 60 years.
Oh, wow.
All right. He moved to Kennebunk and he lived on Summer Street. And he lived where the Emerson Bed and Breakfast is now on Summer Street.
Okay.
That's Theodore Lyman's house.
Wow.
And so, you know, if you go down there and stay, you get to stay in the
What's
Theodore
the name?
Lyman room.
What's
What?
the name of the house?
It's the Emerson house. Yes. And yes, Theodore Lyman is related through marriage to Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Oh,
He's
wow.
like his great uncle. Okay. You can do a lot of name dropping with Theodore Lyman because he is connected to everybody. John Quincy Adams. I mean, he's connected to everybody. He became a phenomenally wealthy man through shipbuilding and through trade in with the West Indies and then with the Northwest fur trade, Hawaii. One of his captains of one of his ships was the first first American to live in Japan, China. He has a huge mansion in Waltham, Massachusetts that you can go visit. He had the first greenhouse in the United States. The greenhouse is still open. You can go down there. I would not recommend going on the tour of the house so much because it's owned by Historic New England.
Mhm.
I mean, the most famous thing about the house is the ballroom there was used for the scene from Little Women. The ballroom scene from the movie Little Women was filmed in Theodore Lyman's house. All right. He was incredibly wealthy. And the story of him getting the town to change the name to his name is out in your hallway out here, if you want to go read it. And he said, if you change the name of the town to my name, I will give you a bell and I'll give you a barrel of rum. And they drank the rum and they forgot about the bell and they didn't have a church tower. And it wasn't for 30 years after his death
Oh my
that the
gosh.
bell in that church
Yeah.
that's behind you was purchased and his son wrote the check. A bunch of people from Lyman went down there and he said, your father owes us a check, owes us a bell. And he wrote him a check for $300 and he said, go get a bell, which for the Lyman family, even back then, was very little money because they were just so wealthy.
Mhm.
And so they got their bell, and that bell from the Blake Bell Company, which was originally the Paul Revere foundry,
Oh, wow.
many generations later was run by the Blakes. And that is a Blake bell in that church.
Oh, my gosh.
And Pat Littlefield, our secretary, got to go in there during the site walk with the planning board, and she got to ring the bell.
That's pretty exciting.
She rang Theodore Lyman's bell.
That is
Okay.
so cool.
All right.
Yeah, I think I went on that sidewalk.
Were you on that sidewalk? Pat was like, I'm not touching it. I wasn't going to touch that thing. Okay. So anyway, do you have any questions or anything on the first page?
No, that is so
You were
fascinating.
describing how they, I just sort of wondered, I don't know if there's any record, but when they were selling off this land,
Yes.
did they divide anything up for roads or access or, I mean, do you have any idea how that happened?
The first records we have on roads is found in a book that was found in the vault here. And it is a description of roads from 1791 to 1799. And it is in a book. Oh, I forgot to bring something. But anyway, in that book is the transcription. It's actually on the board out in the hallway the transcription of the law changing the name of the town is in that book. And I think they transcribed it like that year. There was a revolutionary veteran when he moved to Lyman. He gave them a blank book, and they have written all these records. All the earliest records are in there, and one of them is a description of all the roads.
But I mean, so the people who were selling the land, they were smart enough then to come up with access roads and things like that?
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. Let me show you what they did. There was I might as well do this now. I think it was 1794, the Massachusetts legislature passed a law that every single town in Massachusetts, which is Maine, had to have a map made of the town, and it had to be to a certain scale of rods to inches. It had to have listed on there how far it was from the center of town to Boston. It had to list, and they were very specific about how you're going to make this map. And everyone had to make a map. And then in, I think it was 1803, and we have a copy of this in storage. I didn't bring it today. Someone down in Boston who was a mathematician and all this stuff, he compiled all those maps and made the first map of Maine, which we have a copy of in storage. But I want to show you your map. Your map was made by a guy by the name of Robert Swainson, and he was a surveyor for the proprietors. His name is on all the deeds. He surveyed everything. He made the map to specifications, and this is what Lyman looked like. And he has the date on here. It was May 20th, 1795.
Wow.
It's signed by two of your selectmen,
Oh my gosh.
Heber Kimball and Paul Chadbourne, who's Simeon Chadbourne's brother, from the cemetery.
Yep.
And this, he did all kinds of little notes on here. He put on like how much each sawmill was producing for
Oh my
board
gosh.
feet every year and everything. And he drew little pictures on there.
And he shows the roads too, then.
Yeah.
Yeah, the roads are.
Bunganut's on.
Bunganut's over there. Oh my gosh.
No Wadley Pond.
I'm looking at Bunganut
Interesting.
Pond and comparing it to that map over there, and the shape is, I was like, oh, is it?
Now
gonna be
notice
like
how
that?
he made his like this.
Square,
Yeah.
like
And
a,
ours-
yeah, ours is
Like
like
this.
this, right?
But he made it like this.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Bunganut did change shape, but I can't remember. There was a reason why. Wasn't it like from the flooding and stuff like that, the dam?
Because the 5 Lyman residents deeded to the Shakers to build a dam over there in
And that's how it
1835.
became a different shape.
kidding,
Yeah,
that is so
yeah, I did know
cool.
that
Huh.
from other stuff.
Because all the water rights and everything came from Lyman, not from Alfred.
Right.
There were 5 of them.
Is that crazy?
That is crazy.
So, wait a minute, but since this is a square and that, then is it,
Ours is like
We're like a
this.
rhombus over there, but it is a rhombus if you go like that. It is,
yeah, it is, it
it
is,
is the same thing.
it is,
You
okay.
just do it
okay.
that way.
Yeah, yeah, let me
That's
see.
so amazing.
This was in Polly's office.
Huh.
And we have gotten possession of it.
That's very interesting. It
That
really
is-
Why, do you know why there's 2 swans on here?
To what?
2 swans.
2 swan pond?
I don't know.
There's a heath, oh, that looks.
That's kind of where Wadley Pond is.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it was
This
created,
looks like tar water.
maybe it got floated, maybe it got floated.
That is
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
I just checked that out, I don't know.
Well, that's right.
I know. Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
the lower road
It
to.
would be so cool if you guys had a space to put
I know.
this stuff.
I know.
Maybe if we get.
I
it
think,
down
I think,
the
Bobby
I think
Coombs
part of
is
plans is to,
Bobby Coombs wanted to come along today. He's sitting in storage over in Stockholm. It's like it's lonely over there. He needs to be out and
he
about.
does, he does. He needs to be hung.
He asked if he could come, and I said, all right, your name's on the list. Well, you-
Next time, you'll wait your turn. This is so great.
Huh.
Isn't that amazing?
So Robert Swainson, I don't have a lot of information. I do know that he did live in Lyman, but
Yeah.
I'm having a real hard time getting stuff on
Like
him.
if he did other things or how long
And
he
he
was
kind
here.
of drops off out of sight in 1808, and I don't know what happened to him, and I don't know what. And all of it. Then his wife's remarrying someone else after that. So I don't know what happened.
We have someone's in the wait. Dave is in the waiting room. It's in a big. I'm gonna put this in there. I'm gonna bring this map up to the camera really quick for people to see.
All right.
We have a little request to see this. So hopefully, like I said, people would want to see this in the town hall.
I know.
Tell me
It's
if you
really
guys can
hard.
see. About coming up. Hopefully this can be seen. This is the map. Everyone does can see. Wall Street. There we go.
It's a good idea.
He's not in there. He's just watching. Okay. Thank you so much. We're right here.
Yeah, you can leave it there.
Okay. That is fabulous.
All right. So any questions on that page? Move to the notable historic figures. Okay. All right. So you had 5. And so I dropped with Pat Littlefield and I, who's our secretary, and she does a ton of genealogy. And she and I worked on this. And so we came up with a top 10 of history and a top 10 of veterans.
Oh, wow.
All right. So let's just we'll go through them real quick here. First one is John Lowe III, and he was a proprietor. He had inherited a proprietorship from his father, who I assume is John Lowe II, or his grandfather, who was John Lowe I. All right. He was born in Ipswich, and he was at Bunker Hill. And there's a gentleman from the Alfred Historical Society has written a really good article about the Coxall proprietors 3 years ago. And I need to give him credit. I sourced him at the bottom of the page we just we were looking at before. And he is the one who, and the reason he was researching is because there were 2 people who are actually up here recording the deeds for the proprietors. So the proprietors are down in Ipswich. They're all Ipswich, Cape Ann people. They're selling the land. The 2 people who are doing the legwork are John Lowe and Nathaniel Conant of Alfred. And Nathaniel Conant has there's still a big fancy Conant house over there. John Lowe had a big fancy house too, but it burned down in the fire of 47. Okay. But John Lowe himself owned 1,000 acres of land here. And for that reason, Tucker refers to him as the father of Lyman. So if you go out in the hallway and you look at the board we have out there on your first town meeting, which is in 1780, you'll find John Lowe is very prominent because in the very beginning, he was a town moderator, he was a treasurer, he was a selectman, he was a surveyor of highways, he was a deer reeve. And the deer reeve is like your game warden. And that's a requirement from Old English law that every town had to have like a deer reeve, like a game warden. All right. So he had all those jobs here. He was like, if you go over to Alfred to the courthouse, there's like 100 deeds from Coxall proprietors in there. And nearly all of them are co-signed for the proprietors by John Lowe and Nathaniel Conant. So they're the guys that are up here doing all the actual land sales. He himself actually moved here in 1777, and his son came the next year in 1778, and they're coming from Ipswich. And his son was at, I think I mentioned, was at Bunker Hill. His son, so that's why John Lowe is number 1 on the list. And we have organized these in chronological order from like back then to the present. John Lowe, the son, was at Bunker Hill. He moved to Coxall in 1778. He was way more political than his father. He was a selectman, but he was also a representative to the Massachusetts General Court. after Maine became a state, he was a representative to the Maine legislature. And in 1816, he was a presidential elector for James Monroe. He was very political. And we have a fair amount of stuff in the storage on him that we haven't really put it all together, but there's a really nice article from 1936 about his really nice house, and shows pictures of what it looked like before it burned down. Okay. Simeon Chadbourne, you've already met his brother earlier. Simeon Chadbourne was born in Berwick. He fought at Bunker Hill, and this is the 250th anniversary of Bunker Hill and Lexington Concord. And we gave the town this last month, and this is the 250th anniversary of Lexington Concord and Bunker Hill. And these are all your people from Lyman that were in each.
Wow. That is so great.
All right, so we have this.
Mm.
We'll put that up there. So Simeon Chadbourne is obviously the one who the cemetery is named after, and his house was up in back there, in back of where the cemetery is. That burned down in the fire of 47. There was a really nice article about his house done by some Massapequa students like 50 years ago. And we have a copy of that magazine where they found a person who was around prior to the fire of 47 who drew a picture of what his house looked like. She had been in the house. She used to had been in the house, and she drew a floor plan of the house for the kids to put in that. Of course, they're not kids anymore. That was 50 years ago.
Do you know where that house was relative to the cemetery?
It's in back there, and I know the gentleman, and I'm sorry I can't retrieve his name right now, but he lives next door, and he's done a lot of metal detecting out there, and we have some hinges and door latches and things like that from Simeon Chadbourne's house in storage. I didn't bring them today, but we do have some stuff.
I love it.
So cool.
All right. Next one, Horace Cousins. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on him. There's stuff out on the hall for him, and we have a notebook that is in the library on Horace Cousins, and we have like a lot of his business stuff and everything. I mean, he made a huge amount of money as a coal dealer. He was on Brookline Avenue, right on the river there. And then he went into real estate. And of course, he's the one who provided the money for the school. Lydia Ann Dow Hansen is an interesting woman, and I had to put her in here. Her husband was a big businessman here in Lyman, and he died quite young. And for the next 27 years, she managed 450 acres of property, farm, lumber assets in Lyman, Biddeford, Dayton, Saco after her husband died. I think she executed 14 deeds. She did a land deal for lumber with the Jordan Lumber Company up on Wadley Pond. She did, before it was a Wadley Pond, she sold the Goodwin's Mill sawmill privilege in 1888, and she sold the Goodwin's Mill's property, not the mill, but the property of the Advent Church in 1891. She was quite the businesswoman.
Yeah.
And so we decided to include her on the list. Nathaniel M. Lowe he's a Murphy. He's Nathaniel Murphy. He moves to Boston. He's starting an engineering firm. There's a lot of racism at that point against Irish people. So he changes his name to Lowe. I wonder where he got that name from. He thought of, the most prominent family in Lyman are Lowes. I'm going to make myself a Lowe. So he became the first manufacturer of the hygrometer. And we do not have the actual hygrometer, but I am going to give you this up at your end and you can pass it back down to me. And I need to leave with this because it's quite valuable. This is the front plate off of his manufactured hygrometer. And this was found in the bottom of a file cabinet over at the library.
Ouch.
Can't.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Along with a
God.
huge box full of Murphy material, which is now in a binder at the library. You can go over and read all about
Oh
the
my
Murphy family,
gosh.
an amazing family.
Oh, I see.
That is the front plate of the hygrometer. The other thing that we found, mention this real quick to you. The other thing we found in there, which is unbelievable, he sold a hygrometer to the United States Senate, which is a great place to measure humidity when you think about it. And I'm
Not
sorry.
only humidity.
But anyway, he sells them a hygrometer, and the most prominent Republican senator after the Civil War was Boss Conkling from New York. And he decided after the Senate got a hygrometer that he wanted a hygrometer too. So he bought one from Nathaniel Lowe, and he sent a whole bunch of handwritten letters to him because his needle on his hygrometer broke
Oh my gosh.
and he
really?
needed a new needle.
Needed a new needle.
He needed a new needle. And so there's all these handwritten letters from Boss Conkling to Nathaniel Lowe that were in the file cabinet, original handwritten from the 1860s, late 1860s.
I wonder if he wanted a free one. Wonder if that-
Well, I think eventually they figured out that to get him a needle to put back on his hygrometer so it would work.
Yeah.
But we have it's amazing, these handwritten notes from that senator to him. The other thing that I'll show you that what did I do with that? The paperwork that you have there
Right.
is that's your manual for your hygrometer.
It shows how.
And there's a
high
picture-
it's hooked up there.
Yeah, and there's a picture in there of what the hygrometer looks like.
That is so cool.
Which matches the shape
You can see where the plate fits in
Yeah.
on the.
Yeah.
on the front.
How many of those are still around? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I know there's one in the Smithsonian.
Huh.
Okay.
We should send it to Dave so that he
Yeah,
can-
it's
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Huh.
All right.
Oh, my phone.
Because of that, Nathaniel Lowe got to be a judge at the 1873 World's Fair
Supplies.
in Vienna, Austria. And we have his badge from the World's Fair and all the business cards of all these people from all over the world who gave him business cards while he was at the World Fair. Somebody wrote him a note in Arabic. And we obviously aren't able to translate it, but we have it archived. But it was an amazing amount of stuff that he got from the World's Fair. So anyway,
I'm gonna put it up to the camera just for people to see too.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate it.
That's interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah, you did pretty good.
Wow.
okay.
Oh,
First technology.
Sticking more close to home is his brother Cyrus Murphy.
Oh, he didn't change his name, did he?
No, he didn't. And he stayed here, and he was a very prominent person in Lyman. He was born in Lyman. He was a farmer here. The Murphy house, is down on Day Road. It's the big brick house down there. And he was a farmer, a lumberman. He was in the Maine House of Representatives. He was a selectman. He was a school board member. He milled lumber for the one-room schoolhouses here in Lyman. They operated what was Spang's Mill.
Oh, yeah.
Murph. And when he got a little short on cash, it's great to have a rich older brother Because if you don't want to pay the taxes on something, there's deeds over there. I sign it over to my brother, and then he can pay the taxes.
Oh, that's funny.
He used his brother as in a lot of his business stuff, kind of like a bank. And so his brother was like, has his name on Nathaniel Lowe has a lot of his name on a lot of property and business stuff up here in Lyman, even though he's living in Boston. And he had a nice summer house here too at Goose Rocks, which burned in the fire of 47. He actually died at his summer house.
Really?
Nathaniel Lowe died at his summer house, and he is living in he's buried in Saco.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Cyrus had a long life there, according to this.
Cyrus, do you have time for a funny story about Cyrus? They had they used to have a thing in Maine where every man who was over 80 once a year could go to a convention of old men in old Maine men, and they would like meet sometime in the summer, and they would feed them all and play games and everything, and it was all like the prominent old men of Maine. And he went to the last one he went to, he was 99 years old, and he won a checker tournament. And Rudy Valley was there, the singer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and gave him a box of cigars for winning the checker tournament.
I wonder if they still have that. I'll go.
We don't have the cigars,
It was the good old days, Dawn.
But-
Those are gone.
he
They're gone.
but he was a founder of the Mason, one of the founders, and he was the secretary of the Mason Lodge, and they have a huge portrait of him down there, a huge giant portrait of Cyrus Murphy. Okay. Pat Littlefield researched the next people, and they are she kind of selected them because we wanted to kind of have some people that were a little farther along. So she selected Curtis Taylor, who was born in Springvale. He lived in Lyman for 70 years. He was a selectman for 27 years, 2 terms in the Maine legislature, president of the Farm Bureau, and president of the New England Milk Products Association. And he owned the farm where the turf farm is now. That's where his farm was.
Oh my gosh.
All right. You probably know Carl Rhodes. Okay. So she did the research on that from his obituary. And you probably know Barbara Pillsbury. And we wanted to include her. She was the first female superintendent of Kennebunk, and she has quite the credentials for 42 years of service. So that's why she got
Maybe you
picked.
had cute blonde pigtails, Carl Rose would fill up a bag of candy. Penny candy, and give it to you.
You may or may not know that, right, Pat?
Right.
You heard tell?
Okay, last page, and then I will be gone. Notable veterans. So we made a separate veterans page for you, and they're in chronological order. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the ones that are in the hallway. John Burbank has a display board in the hallway. You can go out and read all about him. Obviously, he is probably, if you had to pick one in all the early writings about Lyman, everyone mentions, John Burbank. And he was on the Bonhomme Richard with John Paul Jones in the first naval. And my wife and I went down to Annapolis, and John Paul Jones is in the crypt at the chapel. Now, I just want to let you know, the chapel at the military academy is about the size of St. Joseph's Church. It's
the
not.
It's the Naval Academy, not the military academy.
Yes, the naval. Did I say military academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Naval Academy. Sorry, and it's a huge church, and he is in the basement, and he is it's like sacred ground for the United States Navy. He was like won the first naval battle. Okay. The 2 Murphys are on here. Everyone who is on this list of the notable Lyman veterans are all veterans who either were killed, wounded, or captured in their military service. We have so many veterans, and you don't want to slight any of them for their service or anything. But the 10 that we put on this list, it just so happens there's 10 in that category, or we have 11 in that category. Pierce Murphy and Thomas Murphy, who are not related, were both on the Raleigh, the ship that was built down in Portsmouth. That is the ship that is on the New Hampshire state flag. If you see Chris Sununu on TV, he's on TV all the time. He's got a Raleigh lapel pin that he always wears. And that ship, Pierce Murphy and Thomas Murphy were both on that ship. They both escaped. Pierce Murphy was very badly injured. And I don't know if you know that or know this or not, but Pierce Murphy is the ancestor of Morris St. Clair.
Oh, really?
And Morris is buried out with him in that cemetery in the cornfield. Okay. And of course, Thomas Murphy is the beginning of the whole Murphy, Nathaniel Lowe, Cyrus Murphy, the whole Murphy family. He's the first one. Benjamin Grant died in the Mexican War. We don't know if he died of disease or was killed, but he died at the San Carlos Fortress, which the United States in Veracruz, Mexico, which the United States Army was using as a hospital. And he is buried, and I guess there's thousands of unmarked graves there. And he is in an unmarked grave in Veracruz, Mexico. George Washington Emmons is buried out on Kennebunk Pond Road, right at the corner of Kennebunk Pond Road and Lord's Lane. And he was captured at the crater, which is part of the siege of Petersburg, and he was in Confederate prison for 7 months. And Joseph Cousins is out in the hall. I won't go into him, as is his brother Seth, and they're on a board out in the hallway. You can read them. Foss Goodwin is up at the cemetery on Day Road and 111, that cemetery there. He died of disease in New York in the Civil War. And in that same cemetery is John Stilling Roberts, who was a flag bearer for the 39th Massachusetts, and he was killed bearing the flag.
Wow.
Lester Perry, who is the father of Robert Perry, who is current vice president of the Historical Society, served in World War II. Did you know him? Anyone know him?
I know the son.
You don't
Yeah,
know
I
him?
know
Yeah, because
Bob.
Bob's going to be 80 this year.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wow.
Lester Perry was in the 330th Infantry. He captured a German platoon with an empty rifle, which is no small task. He was wounded, had his heel shot off March 3rd, 1945. He is in the Purple Heart Hall of Fame, Bronze Star, I ran out of space, Oak Leaf Cluster, and he was the commander of the Legion Post here after that. So I think he's a worthy recipient. And the last one was Norman Poitras, and I don't know if you know of him. He is buried in Biddeford. He was a Lance Corporal in the Marines, and he was killed in Vietnam, August 22nd, 1966. Okay.
Wow. I have one question, Steve.
Yes.
Of these notable historic figures,
Yes.
do you know how many, well, obviously not all of them lived in Lyman, but the ones that did live in Lyman, do you know if they're buried here?
Yeah, these are all Lyman people.
The notable, but are they buried in cemeteries here? Do you know?
Yes, John Lowe and John Lowe III and John Lowe IV are buried in the Congregational Church Cemetery up on Howard Road. Simeon Chadbourne is in his cemetery. Horace Cousins is buried in Newton.
Oh, okay.
Lydia Hansen is buried here somewhere. I would have to look that up. Nathaniel Lowe, I told you, he's buried in Saco. Cyrus Murphy is buried here. He's in that cemetery, the Roberts Cemetery. along with the soldiers we just mentioned, Foss Goodwin and John Stilling Roberts.
Oh, yep.
They're in that cemetery. I'm not sure where, I think Curtis Taylor and Carl Rhodes are here
I
in,
know Carl's here. I don't
are
know
in
if Carl's
Goodwin's
on.
Mills. And I'm not sure where Barbara Pillsbury is. It's in her obituary. We have that. And the veterans, I told you, we have one in Mexico. You know where Pierce Murphy is.
Yep.
And Joseph Cousins is buried in Newton, Mass.
Yep.
Okay. And I kind of skipped over him. He was in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. You know the movie Glory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a captain in that.
Really?
Yes. He was in the Mexican War. He was wounded at Gettysburg, came home recovering, and got put in as an officer in the 54th Massachusetts after the scenes in Glory
Okay.
when they replenished that regiment. And he was with that regiment as a captain until the end of the war.
Oh my
Wow, he
gosh.
lived a good long life.
Seth Cousins, his brother, died of disease in the Civil War, and he's on a monument in the city of Newton, but he's buried in Chadbourne Cemetery with his parents.
Oh, no kidding.
He's next to his parent. His father was a blacksmith, and he's buried next door to him, right beside him and his mother.
Oh.
And Lester Perry is buried up on Lord's Lane. And Norman Poitras, I believe, is in St. Joseph's Cemetery in Biddeford. And he had a huge mass and everything for him when he passed away.
Yeah.
I'm done.
This is awesome.
This
Steve.
was like mind blowing. This is so, to me, this is, I love history. This is so good to have. And I definitely will be giving this to Southern Maine Planning to be able to include the comprehensive plan. So for posterity, for our town to see and hear these amazing stories. And I also definitely will, this video, of course, is going to be out there for anyone that wants to hear this. Steve, we can't thank you enough.
Okay.
Today. This was amazing. Seriously, this
Okay.
socks off.
Are
Well,
you leaving this?
No.
this is going, that stays because I've already given it to the town. All this has got to go back to storage. Obviously, we have climate control storage in Saco
Oh, you do? Okay.
for all our stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, obviously we do want a home at some
Yeah.
point because the town needs to see these things.
Yes.
Oh,
There
yeah.
needs to be a time when people can just come in and
Absolutely.
look at this stuff and,
Or even like the elementary school to be able to take the kids to come see a little bit.
yeah, have this, it would just
about-
open so much of all this information up. And it's too bad it's all sitting in storage over there.
Yeah, I'm sure the town manager's working on a space for
Yeah.
things for you guys to be able to be displayed, because this is an absolute treasure, and thank you so much to you and the Historical
Yes.
Society.
Oh, and I
All the
forgot,
work you do.
I didn't add, the other thing is you may want to add Bobby Coombs on there, and I forgot to put him on.
I think he is on there.
Yeah, keep him on your list.
Mhm.
And this is him, just show you real quick. This is his picture.
Yep,
Babe Ruth hit a home run off him.
yeah, yeah.
He was a baseball coach at Williams College, and the baseball field is named after him down there.
And he's related to Colby Jack Coombs'
He's his nephew.
nephew, yeah.
Colby Jack Coombs obviously was
Yeah.
a big deal. So anyway, this is Bobby. He
That's
died in
fabulous.
Brunswick.
Wow.
And he's very friendly. He doesn't want to be in storage. He wants to be out.
He wants to come out and play.
He wants to be out and about.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you again so much.
Do you want to get this in Word or something, or?
Do you have this in a Word document, like on a computer?
I do.
So if you could would Evelyn mind forwarding that
She
to
will.
me? That would be lovely. It'd be easier than just.
I'll help you out, Steve.
Yes. And no one else is here, so we're gonna end the meeting for today. Again, thank you so much, Steve, and I do
Yeah.
hope
that's
people
very
watch this
interesting.
one and learn a little history that even learn a lot of history about the town of Lyman that we're living in.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
I got your
You
book
got
too,
his book?
Steve.
All right. And then.
You might need those, right?
Yeah, my car's
Thank
like
you
that.
again.
Thank you. think this